Folks
I'm
waiting.
still,
We got 10 people
I'm still
waiting.
eating my damn salad.
Good, good, good. Salads are good. It's giving romance. Romantic
Salad is giving
salad.
romance.
The salad is giving romance for sure. For sure. Okay, let's see if this is working. Hello. Aha! I was
I'm
waiting.
still.
There I
How
am.
can I see the chat?
Okay, I mean, on your end, you'd
Never
have to just be
mind.
on YouTube,
I'll
yeah.
just, yeah, I'll just go on
You just
YouTube.
have to
That's
hop
fine.
on YouTube to see the chat. I have it on my app here.
Are
We'll
we on?
we're on. We're live.
My thing is, do you have Zoom Premium? Sorry.
Why are you worried about the time?
Yeah.
I have it through university,
Okay.
so I'm good.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah, it's helpful to work at university.
Have you tweeted the link?
I have not. You can tweet it and I'll retweet it. I don't really tweet that much these days.
I know you're in hiding.
Hiding? No, I have a life.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
you have a life too. You know how it goes. You know how it
I
goes.
definitely
Let me not be too loud. I'm in my living room.
Wait, hold
Yeah.
on. Which account? What's your Elliot say hello? Okay.
Yeah. Elliot, say hello. Elliot, say hello. Hello, Elliot.
Oh
Aha.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, do you have like an I in your name or something? Because I can't.
Let me see. I mean, I don't, but it should be
No, I
at.
mean like as one of the L's
No.
or something. I don't think
That's
you do.
ELLIOTSAYHELLO. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, you really don't tweet enough, clearly. Because
Well, I'm not popping up. I mean, I got 2,000 followers. They can't. Oh, well, 1,500. They
all
can't do me like that.
right. Oh, good.
They can't do me like that.
Emily. Oh, hi, Emily. Tara is here.
Tara, Evelyn. What's up, Evelyn? What's up, Max? Bubbles, Eva, Mira, Mean Sugar, and Max Salt. Freddie, Gormix Smith. What's up? Leah, Asik. Am I pronouncing that right? Asik. Moon
RM
Evangelista.
deleted most of his Instagram. Yeah.
You did. What's up, Moni? What's up, Alexis? Nublet, Little Oranges, Jaden, and Lives. Creative Ink would not be able to stop by apparently, but sorry to the folks. What's up, Steph? Rowan. Rowan is here. What's up, Camille and Poe? Can't sleep, so here I am. Well, you know that is true. You are in Europe, so sorry guys. I have a little bit of phlegm in my throat.
Hi, Karina.
What's up, Karina? Steph, Rowan, both here. All we need is deny for the Baby Gang YouTube channel to be reunited. April's here. Oh my goodness, it's good to see April. It's good to see April. So, how y'all feeling? So, today, thank you all for coming. We are here live with a good friend of mine and a friend of yours to many of you in the chat. Of course, this is bfly, also known as user bfly, formerly known as Black bfly, Shuki Tweets.
Why are you listing my usernames? We're good. We're good. We're good.
Shuki Tweets, and many
We're good.
others. But affectionately known to most as Awa, which is her first name. Awa is a writer, an artist, and
Writer.
yeah, you're right. You've seen it. We know. You can't hide that.
Oh, the newsletter? Okay, sure.
We,
Yeah.
I mean,
Cool.
among other things. I wasn't even thinking of the newsletter. But there's Awa. Awa is a artist, writer, and now a YouTuber at user bfly on YouTube. So it's really exciting for me to be able to talk with her and to get to help promote her channel. Where,
Okay.
well, you know, you were doing a live stream the other day of like a kind of draw with me thing. But could you tell us what other plans you have in store potentially for the channel?
Honestly, I've been thinking of doing kind of like content in the same line of like the newsletter in question. So, more things about, establishing routines the proper way, not the wake up at 5 a.m. and then, go to the gym right away, like
Right
all
away.
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like not none of that. different views on like just a different perspective on discipline, a different perspective on what you prioritize in your day-to-day life. Probably some art content and just in general, like I've been living my rom-com life.
Mm.
So should everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Living a rom-com life, it's
As
it's
anybody should.
it is a possibility for
It
anybody.
is.
It's good to have chemistry with people. It's good to have
Yeah.
chemistry with another person in real life. I mean, honestly, like we were talking about, like, so me and Awa know each other. We've known each other now for almost, what, 4 years now? Yeah, 4 years now.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because like we met online. We've never met in
Wait, four
person.
years?
Possibly more than that, because I mean, technically 4 years and some change, because we met each other summer of 2019, and then 2020.
Okay.
We've been friends since 2020, 2021, 2022, and now we're in 2023. Like, we were already friends by January 2020, so that's 4 years. And in that time, we have seen a lot. we've
Seen
seen
a
we've seen
lot.
empires rise and fall.
And fall.
We've seen a lot of things. Um, but we've known each other. We met each other through BTS Stan Twitter. I don't know if, I mean, some of you guys know that's something I was on. I had a presence on for a couple years. Some of you may not know that, which to me is like a sign, like I've really made it, right? Like, I really feel like.
That you've outgrown Army Twitter? How? Oh my God, you're
Well, I'm not trying to like have an ego
traitor
or
to the
like.
purple people.
I think I did I transitioned, right? Like, we all like have
Yeah,
that
you did.
moment where people just go like, oh, okay, well, I'm done with Stan stuff now. Like, I'm
No,
gonna
I get that.
stand privately and do other things, and some
Mm-hmm.
people move into content creation, which was
No,
kind of part of
yeah.
what I was doing on Stan's Twitter anyway. And now, Awa is still on Stan's Twitter, but sort of transitioning as well in her own way to focus on talking about productivity stuff and talking about social media and relationships and stuff through her Twitter account, her very popular Twitter account, and her other media.
Popular.
Yeah, popular. Gotta be
Oh my
popular.
God.
Jaden says, "Don't forget your roots," and I won't, and that's why I was here. Like, I will remind me of my roots. But we were talking about something that I think is gonna be a thing I would like to talk about a bit today. We'll have like a little 15-minute opening chat, and then we'll turn over to the chat to ask questions and address what they're talking about, and sort of move back and forth. But I'm really
Okay.
curious, sort of about the online offline dichotomy when it comes to like relationships and stuff, and particularly like people talk a lot now about this idea of like chronically online or being hyper
Mm.
online and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and all these different matters related to like young people, especially, who are spending a lot of time on social media, like we have, and a lot of time in fandom spaces as well, like we were, and are sort of socializing through that, and there are like benefits to that, of course. Like, I wouldn't have been on Stan Twitter if I didn't think that there were benefits to it at that time, and I made great friends. But of course, we've also seen how a lot of sort of ideas and discourse, sort of give people sort of like, I think, misunderstandings or like difficulties with even some things we would consider basic elements of like relationships and friendships. And a lot of times when I do stuff, and I'm sure you come across this a lot too, we've talked about it to some degree, but when I put stuff out or when I'm on social media, followers or people that respond to me oftentimes seem to be people that feel insecure about their social life, feel like they're alone, or feel
Yeah.
like they're not sure about a lot of things when it comes to like in-person IRL life,
Mm.
and are parsing through discourse on Twitter, like, is this really bad to do this? Is it really, how do I do this? And like, are really struggling also with the drama and the discourse that comes with that, because it really becomes a whole powerful force in a person's life,
Like Stan Twitter discourse, you mean?
Well, I think Stan Twitter discourse is kind of similar to other online discourses, especially on Twitter, because it always ends up like with similar things of like drama, like this person's part of this clique, this person's part of this clique. These people are usually, there's like always beef breaking out between people, and then there's usually accusations of people being all types of things like racist or all types of things, which sometimes the allegations make sense. Sometimes the allegations feel a little bit stretched. We've seen a lot of things. Have you seen a lot of people say a lot of things about a lot of people?
Yep.
And
then it turns into spaces, and then it turns into threads, and then it turns into people going private, deactivating for a week, coming back with long paragraphs. Yeah, we've seen a lot.
We've seen a lot of that, and we've seen where that becomes like really like almost like people don't see outside of that. Like a lot of people are like 16, 17. Of course, we're post-COVID, right? So we're not post-COVID, but like we're post-breakout, right? And we're in this COVIDian environment wherein so much of like social in-person interaction has sort of been halted or altered significantly. And so a lot of people have been like building their lives on like stay on Twitter to like have a place to express themselves. You know, a lot of people also are like LGBTQ plus, and don't have that kind of foundation, that strong foundation in their family life and friendships personally to feel comfortable with that at all. And this is the way that they emote and like express that side of themselves and learn. But I think what I'm fascinated in talking to you about is sort of how to help people sort of get out of the bubble and to sort of see, you know, the bubble for what it is, and then utilize the tools of social media in the right way rather than feeling like they have to be stuck online or feeling like they can't socialize, or feeling like they're constantly anxious about who they are and how they look to other people through the lens of like social media and fandom discourse and things like that. So these are things that sort of run through my head. We have a really great crowd so far. What were you gonna say?
To me, I think the main thing is taking like whatever connections you think you have online, because it's not always, you have some people who, you know, sometimes your mutuals are the first one to be like, I always knew this person was weird.
Yeah. I've seen it.
Get dragged,
I've seen
I'm
it.
like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
But like whoever you actually do interact with a lot, whoever you actually do think is like a friend, right? Like taking that relationship off the timeline. Because to me, if you only ever interact on Twitter, like I would even say on like off Twitter, not just DMs, but like literally just on another app like WhatsApp, Discord if you don't want to share your number, things like that, and just kind of have that outside of Twitter always just creates a stronger bond or connection than like just staying on it. Because then once you interact with that person, you also have to deal with the timeline, and then any discourse that goes on there, you know, kind of is part of your connection as well. And then it turns into like whoever, you know, like whatever you say. Also, sometimes I guess if you're really close mutuals with them, then it's like you follow this person, which I see a lot of, and all that stuff. Just having a relationship outside of that, but also, I don't know if that's like, I've seen a lot of like army events in a bunch of places, and I think that that's nice to go find people who think like you.
To be clear, we mean the BTS army fandom.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I forget that your audience is not primarily like.
Well, I don't know anymore, but like, a lot of them are definitely
like,
not. Yeah.
Okay, so events in general that relate to your interest, and then you go and you find like-minded people, and you know you just it's always nice. Like that's how I made my first friends in Toronto, actually, and it's just literally locking off. Touching grass. Really important.
Yeah.
Touching grass.
I don't know how often I actually touch grass, but it's a funny like dichotomy that we set up where it's like chronically online versus touching grass, or like hyper online versus touching grass. That I think part of the problem is that the lines are so blurred. Like people are outside, but they're on their phones a lot, or they're outside, but they're thinking of things in a very Twitter way. Or or they're meeting people in real life, but they haven't really fostered a deep connection with them because their interests are only really the same, fandom or the same like idea. And then they have a struggle with like really understanding people's intentions and how, like I've had people that I've met in person early on, from Army Twitter, that later on I would be like, man, like I don't really like that person as much as I thought I did. Like I really didn't feel like I thought we were friends, and then so and that's a process that people have to understand. It's kind of part of life too, but
I mean,
Twitter's a
hard
tool.
to let go of.
Yeah, hard to let go of what?
Sorry, keep going. It's hard to let go of connections. Like I feel like a lot of people, even like in terms of mutuals, I see a lot of people who feel bad about like breaking a mutual or like, just doing certain things. And I'm like, if you like, I get it, but sometimes you just gotta do you. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes like when you build a foundation in real life of like a core like couple of people that you trust and have your social connections with, and certain things that you do to socialize, certain hobbies that you really are happy about, not even necessarily passionate about, but like fill a good void in your life, you start to realize all these different things that like, oh, I could have done this a long time ago. I thought it was such a big deal, like not following somebody back on Twitter, like it doesn't really matter, like especially when you're friends with somebody and you're like both talking outside of Twitter. The whole thing of like, hey, you don't follow me, it should become less and less relevant. But like a lot of people really judge so much of their lives on like the social media aspect of it, to where even if you know a person in person too, I've seen people who will be like, why'd you unfollow me? And like well,
I
like,
know.
ghost you, like.
No. I've seen people break up friendships over like Instagram unfollows that later on turned out to be accidental, but it was a whole thing. Like, oh my God, you unfollowed me on Instagram, and it's like, why don't you just have a conversation? Like, just ask normally.
Yeah.
But no, it means aggression automatically, which is online discourse a lot. It's just aggression anyway.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do people get so vigorous so quickly when it comes to any sort of conflict online?
I think the minute you just don't see a person in front of you, it's easy to dehumanize them. And so you see them as like, okay, you said this automatically, that means you think that. Like there's a lot of like categorizing people where like you're with me or you're against me. There's no such thing as like, okay, maybe this person had good intentions. You can't hear their tone. You don't know them really well. There's no like there's not in front of you, so you don't humanize them, and all of a sudden they're just the person you're just gonna bash on Twitter, and then you're like, oh, that's it, and you don't really have to think about them afterwards or the impact or anything. So this is easy. Plus Twitter, obviously, with the algorithm and everything, is you feed it with argument anyway. It's made for you to argue. So exactly. If it's just the more you argue, the more engagement you get, and then you just get into that cycle where it's like you see something, you have to react to it, you have to give your opinion on everything. And then it turns into an argument. You antagonize this person, they antagonize you. Just keeps going.
Yeah, it's it's a pretty vicious cycle. I've been a part of it. Like I've gotten caught up in it plenty of times, especially because like I think a lot of people who are online are also people who hyperfixate a lot. A lot of people with ADHD or different sort of conditions that make it really fixating and really like hard to sort of temper your anxieties and and the pressures and like things that you should prioritize and things like that, especially because a lot of the times, because of your condition, it's harder for you to socialize in person, and so you rely on this a lot more as well, and then it's much harder to sort of break from that. And so there's also ways for people, no matter what your condition is, to sort of not be online. I think it's I think it's this kind of misconception I see sometimes where people I think sometimes I'm not like a disability activist or like I'm not somebody who's like super well knowledgeable about it, but I think sometimes people misconstrue like the benefits that a tool like social media can provide to people with disorders or disabilities as equivalent to like necessities for people with disorders or disabilities, whereas like it only feels for one, it only feels like so important to be on Twitter and to be on social media when you have a condition, partially because of how stressful the outside life is, and that's based on conditions that are systemic, right? But part of it is also that you really can get a lot of the things, like it really is supposed to be a tool rather than something that you utilize as a necessity, like a home. It shouldn't be a home, right? Like Twitter is not a home for you. It shouldn't be something that you sit on and you go, okay, let me see what the timeline is doing. I've been in that position, and I felt how that feels, and it's really entrapping. It's really difficult to get out of, because you begin to forget, like, wait, no, like this is a website that will continuously update as long as I look at it. It's not like my house. It's not like where I'm living at. I'm not like staring at the timeline, checking out what my friends are like. That's not what's actually happening here. I'm not actually seeing what my friends are doing. I'm not actually spending time with my friends. So, I would like to encourage now for people to leave some comments and some questions about things you'd like us to discuss in regards to social media and online, offline stuff and fandom stuff, and love and relationships too is a big thing. I think there's a big difficulty too with finding and feeling love as well.
Okay, I actually wanted to ask you this, right?
Yeah,
Do you feel like our generation, like our generation has a harder time having just like romantic relationships? Because I see so many very popular dating advice on TikTok. I see so many people just being very scared of being in relationships now, or so many people who just have made just codes for themselves now. And I feel like it started off from a really good place. So it was like, okay, I don't want to settle in love
right,
anymore. I don't want to do all these things. And then it evolved into, if this person doesn't do that, they don't love you. If this person
right.
doesn't do that, it's not enough, and all that stuff. And where a lot of people also shared very negative experiences, and then other people get really scared of like, okay, what if I,
Yeah.
experience that and all that. So how do you feel about, the way love is talked about in our just social media in general right now?
I think there's definitely something to the idea that it's a trash fire. Like, I do think that there's like a lot of merit to there's a lot of merit to the sort of the idea that we've been like our concept of love and our feelings about love are completely cooked, because of how much content we're consuming and how much social media we're consuming. Um,
Hmm.
and I say that to say, like, there have been challenges in each generation that are unique, that color what love is and what
Absolutely.
relationships are, right? And where you may have had in previous generations less social media toxicity, you would also have had less access to resources to learn about love, or things to people to communicate with
Yeah.
online, or things like that. Like, there's obviously like a yin yang to it. What I will say is that when it comes to, if we're judging like the ability to maintain like sustainable loving relationships, and the willingness to give and receive love from a realistic standpoint, I do think that that's really been really become very difficult. And I don't think it's just social media that does that. I think I mean, social media is in part what it is because of like the base, like because of what, like, the systems underneath it that make it what it is. And those systems
Hmm.
affect a lot of different things. They affect school, they affect everything.
Hmm.
But the propensity for people to be able to authenticize themselves in their own ways, to express themselves in all types of ways and be in all types of different bubbles, and to very much feel the necessity to do that through social media, has really has done a number on people's understanding of like patience.
Hmm.
um I definitely think we're a very impatient generation when it comes to very much anything, and that's because we haven't seen, most of us don't experience what it's like to patiently deal with something, wait over time, and watch how it develops over time. Most of us are very cynical about that, especially because if you think about our generation, we're the generation that was supposed to be like patiently working on things over time and was told that there would be something on the other end of it. And then clearly we watched it sort of collapse all around us with nobody
Yeah.
there to protect us or anything. And so there's a type of deep cynicism and a deep skepticism that pervades, I think, our social views of everything, that is definitely accelerated or heightened by some of the products of that, like the social medias and things like that. But
I mean,
it's just that sort of that tendency, that sort of condition, that like overall condition that has built a very impatient and skeptical kind of young people, I guess.
when you see people already say that they feel like they're running out of time, and none of them are like even 25 yet,
Yeah, we
or people
gotta.
who kind of think, yeah, or people who kind of think that like by age 30 they have to have their life entirely
Yeah,
together, and like as if they die past 30 it's just done, right? Like you see, like I've seen teenagers say that basically, like they just don't have
yeah,
anything set up, they don't know who they are, and I'm like, yeah, that's the point of being a teenager. You don't know who you are, you don't have anything
yeah,
built, so like that's exactly the point. But no, I think there's a rush to just build things, accomplish things, and I feel like there's also lines blurred because technically we share social media a lot with millennials and just people who have had more experience, who've done more things, and just in general, just we are exposed to a lot of different things that, and different people from different social classes who come from different backgrounds. And you see that and you're like, okay, I'm not there yet. And then you're mixing all these generations where they're like, there's somebody who's 16, 17 on Twitter, and you're like 19 or 20.
people are like,
And
you're too
yeah,
old to
and
be
you're
doing
too
this.
old for being here. I'm like,
Like
what?
what Tara just said. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's just there's just a lot. There's lines are blurred. People are feeling like they're running out of time. People, yeah, the impatient thing, I see some people who are like maybe 21 at most, and who are like, oh, I've never had a boyfriend, I've never had a girlfriend, or just like, I'm never gonna find anyone. And I'm like,
yeah,
why do you feel like you need to find the love of your life at like age 20? And it's just all those things where you have some people who are really young who are like, I'm never going to be with anyone. They just give up. And you feel like you've already lived your entire life by like your 20s. You've lived your entire life. You've seen everything
yeah,
you've had to see. And then there's no more hope. There's nothing out
yeah.
of, yeah.
I would say, I think, I think there is a very palpable sense of dysphoria about the current experience of just generally in 2023, but like especially for young people. And
Mhm.
that, I borrowed the term from gender dysphoria and from gender discourse, like, or gender studies. But I think it, when we, to say it's dysphoria, like to talk about something that is a sort of deeply unsettling, dissonant, complicated and dark feeling about a situation and an identity particularly. I think that we experience a lot of that in different ways, and I think age dysphoria is probably, like, if I were to coin a phrase, like an example of that, and that I notice a lot of people who are just really feel really weird about how old they are, like, and not even just to say like, oh, I think what they think is weird, like they feel weird, like they're like, why
Mhm.
am I like,
Mhm.
I'm told that I'm 25 but I feel
Yeah.
20. I'm told that I'm
Yeah.
30 but I feel like a 23-year-old, right? Like
Well,
I
especially after the pandemic.
Yeah. Thank you, Evelyn. You're not one of the gender people. That's very funny. I think, for real, like, there's a sense of like everybody sort of feels younger. Like everybody sort of
Mhm.
feels like they're much more childish on the inside than they are supposed to be on the outside. It's a very prevalent
Yeah.
feeling that there's degrees of that exists in previous generations, but it's like a very, very palpable, widespread condition that I think everybody's sort of feeling. And part of that was the pandemic. But if we're being
Yeah.
honest, it was happening before the pandemic too. um, and
Well, yeah,
I think a lot of that
I've
is
seen it a
partially
lot with
the
like,
yeah. Go ahead.
no, I'm just like, I've seen it a lot with like just talks of, I don't know. I don't even want to get into that, but like I see it a lot when I see people talk about the type of media they consume or just like relationships and stuff. You see a lot of people who basically, I've seen someone say that at this point people want 21-year-olds to be basically minors, and I'm seeing it because like Rose said, we joke about being a 21-year-old teenage girl, but is it really a joke? But I've seen people really do basically push the limit of like, well, you're 20, but you're still a child. You're 21, but you're still a child. 22 is still a child. And then it kind of just gets higher and higher, where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, yeah, you're this age, but you're still a child. And then it's like,
Right.
yeah, I see a lot more now, at least especially on Twitter.
Yeah. It's this we're in a time period, I think, like where we'll look back on this time period as a period of great uncertainty.
Mm,
And I think part of that is that a lot of the conceptions and norms that have been sort of almost taken for granted for many
mm,
years prior to our generation are now like all in question in our generation. And so it becomes a matter of like nothing really, like you when you think, it's like when you think about anything for too long, you like start to be like, this doesn't make
yeah.
any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we talk about age, we talk about the idea, for instance, like age of consent, right? Like a touchy issue, of
Ugh,
course, and it's an issue
very.
that like I think we feel like it would be really nice if we could just believe that once you turn 18, that's it, right? Like
I know,
there you
like
are,
you're
you're
an
ready to
adult,
go.
you're done.
Like the brain
Mm-hmm.
has done the thing that it needs to do, it's switched into place, and the body has
Mm-hmm.
done the thing, it's switched into that thing. Like you grow the wings, right? Your wings are fully developed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work like that.
It really doesn't.
Because for some people, like some people's 18 is not other people's 18, and
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, there's bigger problems besides the literal age when it comes to sort of something we call power dynamics, or just general ideas of like the brain and a person's development, that like we would like to just say that the 18 makes it there, but it's not. Like it becomes a thing of like, well, like if you're 20 and you're in a relationship with a 40-year-old, it doesn't matter like that you've crossed the threshold and that you may be adult
Yeah.
like in some areas. You're still innocent and inexperienced in enough areas, or still
Mm-hmm.
developing in certain areas, or still, maybe the place that you live in, the things that you're doing right now, you're in college or whatever, you're still in so many places where there's vulnerabilities there that become problematic in a dynamic like that.
I see the midnight eclipse. Do you guys think it also has to do with Gen Z and millennials not having the same trajectory in milestone as other generations, just owning a house, having a long-term career? Yes, I
Yeah.
think a lot of us I'm saying Gen Z and millennials have kind of given up on certain goals
Yeah.
that like for our parents by our age, what they could do was a lot different. And for us, it's like, first of all, a lot of people don't want to get married anymore. A lot of people don't want to have kids anymore. A lot of people can't afford a house, and they know that in their lifetime, it's going to be really hard for them to afford a house.
Yeah.
So the things that used to make you feel like a grown up, that gave you that independence, the like just the cost of life in general, where you would be able to like afford going on vacation, just all of those
Yeah.
things, just like the goalpost is constantly moving, I feel like for us. Like, how do you define yourself as a grown up, quote unquote, anymore? When even the jobs are different. Like now you can be a full-time content creator, but then you still have a lot of full-time content creators that don't even feel like that they have it together or anything
Right.
like that. Like, is it just okay, you're making money and that's about it? It's just been so many things that just have changed for both millennials and Gen Z. And I don't think it's possible for us to feel anything but confused.
Yeah.
And that ties into relationships where it's like, okay, now you're dating someone. Um, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Do you get a house together? Can you get a house together?
Should you? Yeah.
Yes, should you have a kid? Because there's a lot of people who are like, maybe the world is gonna end. Should
Right.
we have kids while like, continents are drowning and separating?
Right.
It's just weird.
Which is part of what the celebrity discourse disconnect comes from too, because there's so many, when you see people that are affluent, they don't seem to have that same dissonance, because for them those are not
Mm-mm.
concerns. And you know, I'll do a little Marx here. I'll do a little Marxism, but what's fascinating about how all these things are connected, is that it's really like you can talk about so many different things while talking about one thing. Um,
Mm,
so when we talk about relationships, there's so many other things that connect with that, right? So I think one of the few things that I'm building some sort of understanding of as I study more,
mm,
is the idea from Marx of base and superstructure, that is really really like misunderstood, because there's a concept that the base is, sort of the economic side of life, the economic part, reality, and particularly like the means of production, the systems of production, who owns what, who employs who, what kind of rights do the employees have over the employer, etc. And
mm,
then the superstructure is supposed to be everything on top of that. That's like law and culture and da da da. And there's this idea that the base controls the superstructure. Like the superstructure is just all nebulous, and like if you just change the systems of production, then all
okay.
those things go away and get better. But it's not really like that. Marx's idea of the base and superstructure was that, yeah, like the production, right, the money side of things, the idea of ownership and employment, the workers' rights, right, these things are sort of a baseline that is under, you can see underneath everything, right? You can see underneath your relationship with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or with your parents. Underneath that, there's the base, right? There's the economic realities that make it that way. So that, for instance, I can't, I'm in a relationship, I can't see my girlfriend half the time. We don't ever
Mm,
take enough time to see each other, and that creates these
mm,
different tensions in our relationship and different things that we do to spend time with each other. And
mm,
that's because we're both working and both like trying to figure out what the rest of our lives are, and both living distant and both having issues, and we don't have the money to do this and that.
mm,
Underneath that, you can see that it comes down to like sort of the material conditions. But at the same
mhm,
time, the material conditions don't fully control culture, right? They don't fully
mhm,
control relationships. They don't fully control politics, because those things also have some say on the economic condition. What they are is, instead of just being like this causal relationship, they're these two things that operate among each other, unified as
okay.
like this unified force. So when we talk about like these feelings that Gen Z experiences about relationships, and be like, wow, that's really, it makes a sense, because it's the same way with age, and it's the same way with
Mhm,
how we use social media, and it's the same way with
yeah.
this and that. It's
Mm,
because underneath that, like if you study what's happening in the world of, and the systems of production right now, you have this increasingly sort of tense, almost implosion of all of our systems of production. You have our economy, our global economies are on the brink of collapse. The U.S. economy is on the brink of collapse, and
brink of is very generous, but
yeah,
yes.
in mid collapse,
Yeah.
people are not super able to recognize it.
Mm,
And economic systems don't make any sort of palpable sense anymore, and at least even the way that we are sort of taught that they're supposed to make sense. And this happens on the brink of recessions, and on the brink of wars, and on the brink of all this massive upheaval, that is leading us to see more and more like our world is sort of exploding. It's sort of falling apart. It's imploding.
yeah.
And what happens when you have no stability, right? What happens when you don't know what your future is going to be? You don't have any idea what to expect or what to want. You have no idea whether or not like the ideas you had of age before really should be your ideas of age, and the ideas of relationships, and the ideas of what you should read and what you shouldn't read, and what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. What happens when you have all these questions is because you become extremely anxious and desperate for something that can keep you sturdy. And what people look for is these communities online, whether it's like the red pill people, or whether it's the people on all types of freaking parts of the world, like what all these different types of communities, from fandoms to just little movements, like online, create these spaces through which people can kind of have a life raft to be like, okay, everything makes sense because it's like right here. Like
Yeah.
we were on Army Twitter, and it's like for a lot of people, BTS is like the entirety of like what you concentrate on, because it's the only thing
Yeah.
that you can make sense of, and it's this particular narrative of who BTS are and who their
Mm-hmm.
enemies are and who their friends are and what we're supposed to do, etc., etc. And so that
Mm-hmm.
makes your life make sense to some degree because nothing else makes sense. So you need something that is, and then of course you're gonna be extremely like mad and like like violent almost about it, where you're fighting with people all the time because it's
Yeah,
so
because
crucial.
it challenges your structure.
Yeah, it's like you have
Like
no.
it challenges your entire
Yeah,
structure.
exactly.
And it's just I get it. Like I really get it when I see some people, like especially oh my God, like November 2018 was the moment where I got all of this. Because I was seeing a lot of like younger mutuals of mine who genuinely were really experiencing a lot of genuine anxiety about that period of time in BTS's career and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, because that was their entire like, all of this made sense to them and
Yeah,
it made everything else make sense. So that being like threatened at that time
yeah,
was really genuinely, affecting them in real life. And it's just and I felt that too, right? Not at the same degree, just because my my issue with that period of time was more like, feeling bad for them and like just feeling protective over
right.
them. But like for certain mutuals of mine, I could see how it just, scared them as like something that was like larger than BTS. It
Yeah,
wasn't just like the group or what's gonna happen to them. It was like just more than that. It was a lot more than that.
yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, we're seeing it. We saw it again with the year or so because
Oh,
of the
absolutely.
eventual come of the
Yep.
hiatus and the military discourse and the eventuality of the military situation. I saw a lot of people on private and main being like, "This is the fucking worst time of my life," and why is this person
Yeah.
talking to this person now? And it just becomes this whole thing of like,
We're not even gonna get
we're
into
not gonna get
that.
there, but like it becomes this whole thing of like, oh my god, like everything's falling apart almost, right? And people are so, and people, the thing is, it's like not only does that make you um, really anxious when there's threats to your structure, but it also fuels sort of your resentment and war with people with different structures, because especially when it's like a person from a different fandom, right? Like,
Right, somebody has a question for you in the chat.
oh yeah, let me see. He asked for
Right.
questions to discuss, but I feel like he's ignoring the chat. Okay, I got you, Wealthy Prince from Nigeria.
Wealthy
Um,
Prince from
I
Nigeria.
sent a dono with a message. I'd love feedback on. So I didn't see the donation, but I might have it on. I believe it's on Ko-fi. So let me take a look. But what I was.
Did you say Ko-Fi?
Is it Ko-fi or coffee?
I don't know. Now you're making me doubt myself. I always thought coffee because it's like the symbol, the
Ooh.
logo is a coffee.
Yeah, it should be coffee, but I also like saying Ko-fi because it looks like lo-fi, right? So
That's cute.
yeah, like, so Wealthy Prince from Nigeria wrote, as a millennial father of five, I'm 35, I'm coming to terms with the fact that our kids are being fed so much content that previous generations' forms of parenting just don't apply. The whole they should do it because I'm their father and I said so. 1,000%, right? You see this in the parenting dynamic as well. You see the reality that, like, how can I apply this set of parenting rules that worked, to whatever degree for me, and there
Mm-hmm.
might be things that I change or whatever, but like these things that I have thought were going to work, when the entire idea is from like gender roles to education and the education
Mm-hmm.
system to jobs and the job market to housing, and all these things are completely different in terms of how this generation sees it because of the impending realities that they're dealing with. Um,
Yeah.
and again, that's like, basic base superstructure analysis is like, well, the conditions are very different. The
Mm-hmm.
conditions of production are very different. The conditions of the employee in the working class are very different. Not to say that they're worse or anything, but like they're revealing themselves in a particular way. They're unraveling in a particular way
Mm-hmm.
that makes it so that socially all these sort of things come about as a response to, or and coinciding with these conditions, these problems. And it usually takes the form of this very anxious form, because of course it's anxiety. When you have an anxiety at the base, you're going to have an anxious superstructure. You're going to have anxious people who go online. And what I was going to say is, of course, you're going to be resentful and like angsty towards people that maybe you don't even have a direct conflict with. But like, as soon as you get the opportunity to, like, somebody in another fandom says something that bothers you, you're gonna fucking wild out, because you're like, this person not only is saying something I disagree with, they're fundamentally living a even by just being in their way of life or their fandom or their thing, are making me call into question, or offering some sort of threat to my way of life. And so now I have to assert my dominance over that. You know what I mean?
I actually would say that the best example of that is fat phobia
Fat
versus
phobia.
gym bros.
Right.
I have never seen, because like I'm always thinking like, okay, they haven't actually done anything to you. But the moment I actually started seeing how they think and how they talk amongst themselves, and realize that, the whole idea is like, I'm uncomfortable when I'm looking that way. So you being happy looking this way is a direct threat to
Yep.
me. And then I saw that same logic applied to a lot of different things. Like this is very
Mm-hmm.
specific to like,
Mm-hmm.
well, not very specific, but like for instance, I've seen a lot in like African communities. Like African Twitter is a whole different beast on its own. But like a lot of like, African parents would be like, people don't want to get married anymore. You don't want to be wives anymore. And
Mm.
so where being a wife before was a source of pride, and like, in Senegal even people would say like, well, it doesn't matter because at least you're married. No matter what happens, at least you're married. And that's like you won basically.
Right.
If your husband is just cheating on you day in day out, doesn't matter, at least you're married, you're a wife, somebody picks you, that's great, right? And then basically the moment younger women started being like, well, I actually don't want to do this, it's actually not an achievement for me to be
Right.
married, it doesn't
Right.
mean anything to me, I want to do more than that, then it was a
Right.
direct threat to like the people who chose that way of life and who were like, well, does that mean I lived my entire life wrong? And then they start being very just violent towards you and just trying to make you rethink the way you are and attacking you nonstop. Because it's like
Right.
you existing the way you are is a direct threat to me and it's
Yeah.
making me rethink my own choices. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's making it's I think there's a problem to where when we attach something metaphysical to the things that we are, like, that we live by. And what I mean by that is, like, it can't just be like, I'm happy because I'm a housewife. It has to be
Yeah.
that housewife life is the correct way
The
to
best.
live. And where is that? It always comes down to the natural thing. God made humans to be like this. It says this in the Bible. It's natural to this. And therefore,
Adam
when
and
we do
Eve
this,
and
this,
all
and
that.
that, we're going against our nature. And it's like, well, that kind of logic can be picked apart very easily. But at
Very.
the same time, it would be nothing wrong if it was just like a core belief that, like, you didn't even necessarily believe in, but that you found comfort in and that worked for you.
Hmm.
But, you know, not to get like to my Buddhism bag, but like what part of what I think Buddhism is going to be important in the liberatory struggle of our generation is that the Buddha was not a person who liked beliefs. He was a person who's like, this is not a belief system. You're not supposed to have faith or believe in anything. This is all about truth. You will go out and you live the truth and you will see it, that it's like this. And this is a system of which we can understand it, of course. But ultimately, this is about truth. I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is a thing that you have to believe in, you have to have a lot of faith in and think, because what we end up doing is we attach so much to stuff that is not permanent and that is not rooted in anything, like really soluble. You can't attach yourself, like if you were to attach yourself to a fly, you can't expect that your life is gonna go well, right? Like you can't accept you're gonna die pretty quickly and you're gonna be flying around uncomfortable for most of that time period.
Yes.
Sorry, Rod. It's okay. But like that's like the kind of thing that like Buddhism is very central in responding to, in that it says like attachment is the problem, because we
Mm-hmm.
attach ourselves not even just like casually but extremely strongly oftentimes to all these things that are impermanent. And when we attach ourselves to something impermanent, that just creates suffering, because all you end up doing is continuously trying to maintain the permanence of something that is impermanent. So if I gotta kill somebody, if I gotta do something horrible, whatever, I have to just keep this thing. And then you don't even get to enjoy the thing because you're spending your whole time worried about it, right?
Well, I think that we see that a lot on, well, first of all, Stan Twitter, well, obviously,
Yeah.
but just not, it just, it more than that. Whereas, like, it's easier and easier to convince people of things. I feel like everybody's craving community, and no matter how the community is created, if you feel like, okay, that makes a little, like, I love the broccoli is man-made part of TikTok. I love that part of TikTok because it doesn't take much for them to create community. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. They believe that everybody's trying to kill them, whatever. But I'm like, it's so fascinating to me that it takes so little
Right.
for people to be like, we have exactly one thing in common, or like, there's one sound that makes it sound like a sci-fi movie, and they're telling you that this is this and whatever. It's somebody's lying to you,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it is great. It is great. We have a community. Why?
Yeah.
Because we all believe this one man who said broccoli is man-made. Therefore, now you must only eat alkaline, like whatever. All of this, I love. I love. I'm just like, it's ridiculous, and I've chosen to laugh about it
Man
instead of
made.
getting anxious and annoyed about it, because I'm like, you know what? At least people crave community. A win is a win.
A
A
win
win
is a
is a
win.
win.
I mean, like, that's the thing, is that it seems all fun and innocuous until you, obviously it becomes the same types of people who then go out and create chaos in all types of other communities and harm other people,
Absolutely.
because they have to maintain that impermanence, right? So Salma's in the chat. Salma's in the chat, so
Salma
shout out
isn't.
to
I wanted to say this earlier because I'm like, now that we have Salma in the chat, the conversation is automatically going to elevate.
yeah, we're elevating that, we're floating. Someone says, at the end of the day, we also have to be aware that those people are doing it for content. They are paid to commodify their living into a product. So this is a key
Hmm.
element of things, right? Is the idea
Hmm.
of capital, right? And social theorists like Pierre Bourdieu have also spent time connecting capital to ideas that are beyond just what we see as like money, but like the idea of like social capital, or like emotional capital and things like that, right? Is the idea that there's something to be gained from interactions, right? Like, we see this a lot on Stan Twitter. Motherfuckers, like, the way that your whole presence changes when you start getting followers, or the way that
Oh,
certain people, you can see, like, the way that their content is focused towards amassing a following, which
like the tweet deckers. I have to admire those people. I admire the tweet deckers because I could not. Like the cringe, I really cringe when I go through their account, but I'm like, I respect it. I respect it because you know what? You're grinding.
yeah, it's a
You're
grind. Like,
grinding.
you gotta be real about it. Like,
Like
who among us?
I'm just like, it's not only just the fact that they stick to the template. They tweet in a timely fashion. They know where the tweet is gonna bang. I'm like, there's a science to being a
Yeah,
tweet decker.
I was
I
man.
admire it.
I was talking about this sometimes. By the way, would like to invite everybody to make sure, like, you can send super chats, or you can send like regular messages, and we'll try to answer as many questions or comments as possible. Um, I would sometimes do this thing where I would tweet, back in my Stin Twitter days, where I would talk about,
Mhm.
like, there's a formula, right? Like, there's a formula if you want to get a hit tweet on Stan Twitter. I see it every morning.
Oh, absolutely.
You see it every morning. You go on there, you get the recommended tweets, and it's like, bro, like there's that one particular genre of tweet that's like used really like kind of flowery, big word language to describe something very loving and charming about something
Simple.
that BTS member did. Yeah, just like it's
Yeah, you make it at least 3 lines. You gotta
yeah.
make it 3 lines. It can't be 2 lines.
It
It
can't be
gotta be
too
three
long.
lines.
You
You
gotta
use one
reach the
word.
full character limit.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Nah,
yeah.
it's very interesting to me.
There's so
And
many
the thing
genres.
is like the longer you're on Stan Twitter, the
Night, Cloudy.
less you want to do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
at first I was sending the long ass birthday messages, and then we're like, you know
Yeah.
what? Happy birthday, bro. That's all I got
Yo.
in me right now. That's
And
all
people,
I got in
like, you
me.
just see, cause you think that the interaction is gonna be more fulfilling. Like, you think, like, when you get 20K likes on a tweet for the first few times, it's like, oh my god, like, this is great. Look at all these comments piling in, right? But you
I actually
realize
hate it because then it leaves your neighborhood. Once it leaves
you
your
leave your
neighborhood,
neighborhood.
it's done.
That's the thing. It's like when you have your neighborhood on Twitter, it's the people that you're comfortable interacting with who usually are actually responsive to your tweets and are communicating back and forth with you to some degree. But then when
Mm.
it leaves your neighborhood, you have no idea what's gonna happen. Like, you have all these people who are interacting with it and have their own agendas with what they interact with it, or their own interpretations of things, and it stops becoming a thing where you really feel like you're communicating at all, and more that you have just created a piece of media that people are now, like, using to sort of feed back into their attachment or feed back into their, like, thing that they're doing. Like, it's like, where's the back and forth? Like, when you comment on my video or you comment on my tweet, like, say something like that indicates to me that you've read the tweet, right? Like, say something to me that indicates that you're
Listen,
interested in conversing with me about what I wrote or did,
you know the amount of times I get somebody answering your tweet and then they themselves will realize that it was not the right time to say whatever they replied. Like I'll literally be tweeting about something serious and they'll be like, "Did you see that Namjoon did this?" And they're like,
Yo,
"Oh, sorry, I didn't realize." And then it's just like deleted tweet. You know, that's crazy.
people don't
But
even
wait,
read, like,
what?
they literally, like, you know what, you gotta just, like, I gotta chime in, I gotta ask somebody. I love the
Yeah.
classic, like, what happened tweets, which is like,
Oh God, no, I actually have those words muted. I'm so sorry if you ever entered what happened or like what are we talking about or what's going
what's
on
going
one of my
on.
tweets. I have all of those words muted and I'm not trying to ignore you on, well, actually no, I am trying to ignore you on purpose. But it's just like I am not doing it. Like I really am not. You have to use your search bar.
Yeah,
You have to get context clues. You got to
yeah,
do it yourself. I can't do it. I used to do this where like somebody would say something I'm in the comments trying to explain it's not the right, and especially now that like there's more followers, I don't even want to bring, you
right.
know. But the wealthy prince of Nigeria, from Nigeria, my bad. My 9 year old has FOMO to an extreme. How do we guide a generation that has terrible anxiety from the moment of self awareness? I think you gotta turn fear of missing out into just being happy that you missed out. Once you start teaching your 9 year old that like missing out on certain things is good, that's how I see it, and you're consciously removing yourself from just like things you just didn't want necessarily to be a part of, and you start seeing that like, okay, you missed out on this thing, whatever. It can happen in other ways, or like you had a good time in another place with somebody else. Once you're really in the present, you teach your kid. I don't know how you're gonna do that. I don't have kids. Maybe one day I will,
Yeah,
maybe I won't. We'll see. But
yeah.
just being very happy that you missed out on some things. Like once you really learn that you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be everywhere, not
Mm-hmm.
everything requires an automatic response. Elliot knows more than anyone. Sometimes I get a text, it will take me a while to answer
Everybody's
because
like
maybe
that.
I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
But I feel like some people feel like everything needs an automatic response, especially in the times of push notifications,
Yeah.
where like you get a notification all the time. I get more than like 150 notifications a day, apparently, according to my iPhone
Analytics.
stats, and that is way too much. Way too much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think, just as you will sometimes do something and then regret doing it and be like, this wasn't fulfilling at all, you will also have moments in life where you wanted something and then it doesn't happen for you, and then afterwards you look and then like, thank God I didn't do that. Like, well, I'm glad that
uh-huh,
that didn't happen.
uh-huh.
Well, sometimes we want, just because we want something doesn't mean something bad has happened to us when it doesn't
Mhm,
happen, right? Just because we
mhm,
want to, go to this movie premiere doesn't mean we have had something bad happen to us because we didn't go. Um,
mhm,
and I think part of the problem is maybe exposure. It's really difficult for young brains to get around that process, especially when you're young and you have ADHD. Like that process
mhm.
of like, oh, I can't have my instant gratification. Like, there's really, it's really, really difficult to even grasp, but that's a thing that's happening. Like, it takes time. Like, that has to be instructed into people that their brains are working certain ways, because when you're in that moment, you'll be sitting. We've all had those days where we sat there, we thought we were about to have a really great day, and then 5 hours later we're like, my back hurts, I don't know why I'm still sitting here, I've been watching the
That was
same
my day
YouTube videos.
today. I'm not gonna lie.
Like, I mean, sometimes those days are fun, but like once in a blue moon. But like we've had like and then you're like, why do I only read my book that I've been really wanting to read for 5 minutes, but I've been on YouTube for 6 hours, and yet I feel like I have no time. Like there's just some sort of wild
Hmm.
thing going on. And what it is that idea of instant gratification, that it's partially, again, that response to the anxiety. When you're anxious, you look for something to make you comfortable, right? You look for something. There's nothing interesting or fun to you about the idea that something might go wrong or something might be uncomfortable, because you're already living in that perpetual state of discomfort. And so what we often have to do is really reckon with ourselves, to educate ourselves about how our own brains and hearts work, and educate ourselves on like how to actually be okay with things. Like, it's the biggest, like, to just be okay with things,
Letting go,
like
letting
just
go.
minding your own
Honestly,
business, like letting things go, not worrying about outcomes. Like when something bad happens, being able to be like, to process it and grieve if you have to, but then also be able to be like, okay, it's done. Like, I don't, like, this is such a key thing, that it seems so cheesy and simple, but it's really one of those things that becomes so powerful, because everybody kind of has to learn it for themselves.
hmm
And it's unfortunate, because I would love to be able to just tell people, everybody, like, you have to learn how to let go, and then everybody does it. But
yeah, but
like,
it's hard. It's hard, and we all know it's hard. We both are not neurotypical people, so we both know it's hard. And the thing is, I think one of the best things I've done this year and like started last year was telling myself at the end of the day that the day is done. The day is done. Whatever I needed to do that day that I cannot do now, that I cannot cram in the like 1 hour I have left of the day, it's done. Intentionally letting go of whatever I couldn't do that day, going to sleep, it's done. I'll tackle it tomorrow. I'll put it on a list tomorrow. There's no need for me to carry
yeah,
that like anxiety with me
yeah,
all the way to sleep, all
no,
the way into the morning, all the way feeling overwhelmed, all of that. Just at the end of the day, being like, it's done. The day is done. It's okay.
yeah,
Whatever didn't get done today didn't get done today.
yeah,
It's not the end of the world. It's the days that she's still, everything's still going on. That's fine. And just being able to like pay attention to, okay, how does my day actually go? I spent a week doing that, where it was like I'm just noticing how I do things, what I'm doing,
yeah,
where my time actually
yeah,
goes, what am I prioritizing, and
yeah,
then seeing that I'm actually not prioritizing the things that matter to me,
yeah,
because I'll be wanting to do something, but then I get a notification, and all of a sudden I'm like, I pick up my phone, and that's the end of that,
yeah,
right? And just being intentional about how you spend your time,
yeah,
being intentional about letting go of the things you didn't do, all of those things, and just it's really it's changed everything. It took me a while. It took me a while, and like I think I had to understand that like, if I don't take a break, my body will force me to take a break.
right.
And it's happened enough times that like I was like, all right, I
Yeah,
can't keep going like this, where I have like a peak of productivity, and then boom, I'm down.
yeah,
I can't do anything anymore. It's
right.
like you just gotta do better for yourself. You gotta want better for
You have
yourself.
to want better for yourself.
You have to want better for yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Like,
It's like you don't even get. So Salma had a important, like, sort of comment before this that your comments very much led into. Is like, it's less
sorry,
about
I'm
the
not
moment.
watching the chat.
Yeah, that's fine. It's less about the moment and more about the purpose. I'm teaching this to my 7-year-old brother. Do things with intention, even if it's
Oh.
watching a movie. What is the intention? Which is a very Salma thing to write, of course. But
Hmm.
like
Her
that,
brother, who's very adorable.
I'm sure. Doing things with intention is such a good piece of advice. I sometimes think of it
Hmm.
like doing things with love or doing things with care, where,
Hmm.
for instance, a lot of what we do online is we go and we just let steam off. So we talk about somebody that we don't like, right? Somebody like we see a news story, we quote tweet it, we're like, this motherfucker's a piece of shit, they suck ass, right? And
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk fucking
Sorry, my
dickwad,
bad.
right, right.
My fucking nemesis right now.
Yeah, it just oozed out of you. It just jumped
Just
out of
literally,
you.
like, I'm like, you said somebody you don't like, and my brain immediately like Elon
See,
Musk.
you didn't even do that with intention. Like you didn't do that with it. Just came out. The intention was not there. No, that's the thing. Like it's exactly that thing because not to say like everything that you do has to be done with the perfect thing in mind or perfectly good,
No, of
right?
course, of
Part of
course.
sometimes the intention is like I'm just gonna let loose, but
And that's all right.
sometimes when we're in a conversation with somebody, like we have to have that moment in our head where we're like, what am I trying to do here? Like, am I trying to convince this person of something? And then evaluate
Yeah.
why you're making that's your intention, right? If I'm talking to somebody online and I'm like, I don't like them, or they have this, they're saying this thing that's making me aggravated. Like, I think to myself, like, what do I want to do here? Okay, do I want to get a zinger? Because I'll get a zinger off sometimes. Okay, I'll get a little dunk
I
in,
think it's necessary. Occasionally, it's necessary to be
just
petty.
occasional
Just
dunk.
the right amount. Just the right amount.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about necessary, but it certainly is like fun.
No, it's
Like,
definitely necessary. Because, like, if you just gotta be petty at the right amount of times.
sometimes
You
self
can't be the bigger
defense.
person all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
You can't be
you
the bigger
can't
person
worry
all the
about it
time.
either. Like,
Sometimes you gotta be the smaller person.
for
You
me, I
gotta go
think
low. You gotta
sometimes
go low. Sorry.
you gotta hit the knees.
Sometimes you just
Sometimes you
gotta
gotta
do
swing
that.
for the knees.
And then you'll deal with the consequences later, but occasionally,
Yeah, I mean, what's funny about that is like there is consequences. Like, and
there
we
are
often
those.
don't see it because we're thinking about the other person, but like we don't think about the consequences that are, for instance, like saying a lot of negative things on Twitter because we're really upset. We go online and we say about a lot of negative things that we're feeling. Like once or twice, it's good, but like what you notice is that the energy comes back, and sometimes
It
that's a good thing.
does.
Sometimes it's good to have the energy come back when you feel that just so you can feel that negativity come back to you because that negativity is not bad. It's not bad or good. It's just part of life. But sometimes, like what you notice is that the more you dig into it, the more it comes back to you. It's the same thing. The thing people say about drama, right? Like people who are constantly looking for drama, the drama always follows them, right? Because
Hmm.
they're seeking that. Like they're thinking about it, or they're not. They're not intentional, maybe because they don't realize that they're doing it, but they're seeking that conflict, that particular style of conflict, that particular style of antagonism, that particular, like, they're looking for the gossip. They're trying to figure out who did what. They're trying to figure out how they can associate, who they should associate with and who they shouldn't associate with. They're trying to figure out how to make their like friends like them more. They're trying to figure out all these different things. And so what happens is that these problems come with that, and then they don't know how to handle those problems. They're like, why does this keep happening to me? And it's like, well, it keeps happening to you because your priorities are bad, right? Like there's things, and the priorities are not bad because it's all your fault. Like your life is a certain way, and then you start seeking bad priorities as a result. But like you also have to have that moment at some point where you're like, wait a minute, like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter what, like where the what who's doing what. It's not my business, right? Like it doesn't matter if this person's a horrible person or not. I don't even know them. It's not my business. I just won't talk to them, and we'll see what
Hmm.
happens. It doesn't matter if this person's doing a thing that I don't approve of. Let them do it, because you don't know how many damn times. It's a perfect example of the repercussion aspect. I don't know how many times I have told a person like this is what you should be doing, and then realized later like, oh my god, like either like I'm like there's no way I would have followed the same advice. Like I would have never, like now that I understand this person's position more, I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my god, like that was
And
way
now,
too difficult the way that I was putting it.
yeah.
Or I'd be like, dude, I was just wrong. Like like actually that's
That
the way.
no, honestly, yes. You gotta go low, but you can't. You don't. You still have
That's
morals.
why you gotta
You
know,
still have
like you have to
morals.
have morals, but like you also have to know
Yeah.
too. Like sometimes you give a person advice about what they should do with their life, and you think what you're doing in that moment is you're almost you think you're God. Like it's like you
Yeah.
think like, oh yes,
I just know better. I just know better.
I know better, and you're doing it wrong, and then you realize like, then they do it, and then they hurt themselves or something goes wrong, and you're like, oh shit, like I shouldn't
But
have said
wait, hold on.
that.
Actually, going back to the doing things with intention thing, and I think Sama was you mentioned Sama talking in the chat and like just doing some things like just talking about how sometimes some people like capitalize on certain things. I actually think. right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's made me go back to being more creative was making gifts, specifically doing things for other people,
Yeah.
where it's like I know there's going to be a very specific audience. I have an intention of doing something that I'm going to love and that this person is going to love. And it just, it like changed everything about like, I don't know, how I'm approaching my creativity. Like,
Yeah.
just in general, I think for people who do create content, I just wanted to mention that because I know we're going way off of the whole intention thing, but like making content or like just creating something for someone else will make you
Mm.
tap into like parts of your creativity that you usually wouldn't. You're thinking of what that person likes, but you also like have more liberty
Yeah.
because you're not like constrained by like, okay, this is what my audience likes or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just have a very nice intention of making somebody else happy and doing something that you're going to be proud
Yeah.
of because you got to be proud of it enough to give it to that person, right?
Yeah.
And again, so I'm just putting it out there for anybody that's like in an art block or like just, has been trying to be more creative or picking up a hobby. You don't have to, pick up knitting and you're like, I'm gonna knit an entire blanket. Just
Right.
make something for somebody that you like. Just
Yeah.
make something for someone that you care about. And it just changes. Like the intention, just doing something with the right intention, again, just going back on that before we
Yeah.
wrap up on that, is genuinely can set good habits, good precedents. Like I
Yeah.
was in an art block of almost an entire year until I
Yeah.
decided to draw something for my partner. And then it changed
Yeah. It
everything
changes
from
everything.
like now I've been drawing every single day
Yeah.
because I'm like I know that if I draw something, I can talk to him about it and then we can like, bounce ideas off of each other and it's just like fun and I don't need to post it and I don't need to feel like this goes with my Instagram or anything. Just
Right.
the intention of doing something that he likes that I'm happy enough with that I will show him will like has changed entirely how I've been drawing a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think well, restrictions is one of the biggest ways to make yourself creative. When you create limits or you obtain limits on something, and you say, "I'm going to write a song about bananas," then you think to
Yeah.
yourself like, "How am I gonna do that? Like, how am I gonna make a song about bananas?" And you get all these ideas, right? But what you don't realize when you're is that there's always limitations. Like there are always limitations, and limitations are a beautiful thing. And one of the idea of like toxic positivity and the idea of excess positivity that we talk about in the burnout video and the Byung-Chul Han video, and in these experiences of burnout that people have, it almost is always because there's this idea of limitlessness that they're so addicted to. Like if I just want to do this and this and this and this at the same time, and it's like, well, it sounds like a recipe for disaster. Like it sounds like you're not going to get anything done. But if you do one thing and you're like, I give up on the idea of also doing these other things, I'm just going to do this. That's part of the deal. But you make that deal and you realize that you get it done, and there's so much good that comes out of it, right? Fusa Burns asked, is there a limit on how much control you have in your life? Like, I don't want to disappoint my parents because they're nice people, but I also don't want to live the life they want me to live. So
Do you what I feel like there's
there's
always a limit on
there's
how
no
much you control because there's no way like you
yeah.
can't predict. You know the amount of things I try to plan in my life that has gone like this entire day today. I got into the stream like before Elliot started the stream. I was extremely just pissed because this entire day I tried to plan perfectly, and every single part of the day somebody came in and ruined that part of the day for me in some way or shape or form. Everybody today decided that no matter how much I planned, no matter how early I got out of the house, that day was just not
Not
gonna
gonna
go my
happen.
way. Not gonna go my way. And you know what? I had to come home. I rented to my partner, and I had to be like, you know what? It's done. It's 10 p.m. I'm gonna go on the stream. There's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
I'm not going to, my life is not ending today. I just gotta let it go. I
Yeah.
got my rent in, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
just not doing anything. And you just, yeah, I don't think you can control, like, all you can do is realize, to me, when things are aligning with you and when they're not.
Yeah.
Is there something that my parents are proud of that actually aligns with me? Or am I gonna have to make my vision come true and then hope that they see it? Like, you just gotta feel like, okay, this is true to me, this is not true to me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Emily says I planned 2020 as my year, and then, well, yeah, 2020, I was so excited about
Yeah.
2020. I was like, man, this is great, all of
Yeah.
that, new decade, hey, nah, clearly no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we keep falling for that trap. I mean, it's so addictive as humans. I mean, this is another thing that Buddhism teaches us. For one, it teaches us that we don't have control of anything, right? Like we to relinquish control and focus on only the little small things, like this tiny,
The
tiny piece
things you
of
can
land
control.
that you can control, like the breath, the in breath and the out breath. It doesn't matter, how many impairments you have. Like everybody who's alive is breathing, right? So breathe, right? You come back to that. That's why you meditate. It's not just that you're breathing because it feels nice. You're breathing because you're returning home. You're coming to you're coming to the thing that is in your control, that is you.
Mm.
And that's the in breath and the out breath. But the other thing is, aside from the control, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, hope. The Buddhism teaches you not to have hope. The idea is like, hope is, it's attachment. It is an attachment to an idea of something that could happen in the future that you think, for one, arrogantly, like you're God, that you think is the best thing that should happen, right?
For you,
For
yeah.
yeah, for me or for the world, for da da da, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
hope is obviously like a figurative thing that's larger. Like obviously, you can't just get rid of the concept of hope, but the idea of hopelessness is actually extremely liberating. Just as the idea of like having no control is extremely liberating, because it teaches you like, I am not supposed to know what the
Hmm.
best thing is. I am not supposed to do. I'm not supposed to control anything. I'm not supposed to have all these big things going on. I'm not supposed to. I'm just gonna go home. Like I'm gonna come home to myself, and then from there I'll figure out what I'd like to do next, and everything I'll do one at a time. So when you want to take, if you're in a situation where you're having difficulties with somebody,
Hmm.
you recognize, I can't control this person. I can't control this outcome. I'm not going to have hope that we're going to fix this. All I'm going to do is look at the present, look at what I have, what's in front of me, and then with intention, the intention starts to show up. You think, okay, well, if this is what's in front of me, then I should do this. Like,
But does that mean that one should never plan anything?
no, it means people, plans are useful because they're used to address intentions, right? You have an
Hmm.
intention, for instance, to give somebody, ask somebody out on a date for Valentine's Day. So you plan
Hmm.
out how you're going to meet them and how you're going to talk to them.
And I hope y'all have plans for Valentine's Day tomorrow. Not all of you. I guess some of you, like, probably don't care. Or, like, it's actually already Valentine's Day for the Europeans. I saw Tara say Happy Valentine's Day in the chat. But, yeah.
Yeah, you plan things out. Sorry, I keep butting my. You plan things out, and you think to yourself. Yeah, I saw you. You plan things out, and you think of you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. Now, what happens is you can't attach yourself to the idea that that's what has to happen, but the plan helps you think about the
Mm,
outcomes and the things that are right and the things that work,
mm,
right? And then you go into it and you see what happens according to that plan. But you also recognize at the same time, like, I don't control the outcome. I don't control exactly how this goes. And so I'm just going to go about it with my intention. So if I have the intention to ask somebody out, I'm going to figure out what
mm,
it is that they're attracted to. I'm going to figure
mm,
out whether or not they're attracted to me, and how to be the best, go about this the best way. And the intention is because I want to spend more time with them and have a loving relationship with them, right? So if you have the first thing is to make sure you come home, right? The first thing
mm,
is to be present, and then from there, when you're present, you start trying to have, like, thinking of the good intentions, right? Thinking of having
mhm,
good pure intentions, like, I would like to, you know give something nice to somebody, and
mm,
then from there you act on the intentions in a way that you remain intentional, and you remain also relinquishing control, and only in the
mm.
present. It sounds extremely complicated, but it happens
I
like this. It really does.
I mean, I think relationships teach you that a lot, because and just endings in general. I think one of the biggest things I've had to learn early last year and this year was that, no matter what my intentions are and no matter how much of a vision I have for like where I would like
To be.
things to go,
Yeah.
I just don't necessarily know what like I've been humbled so many times by things going completely differently than like I planned, right?
Right.
And then it ended up in a much, much, much better place than I
Yeah.
could have ever like, planned for. But it doesn't necessarily mean you give up on everything. And like I saw somebody in the chat earlier say, well, I've always been a go with the flow type of
Yeah.
person,
Great.
but now I can't plan for the future. I think you just gotta find that balance where it's like, to me, that's what I do when I set quote unquote a routine. I
Mm-hmm.
don't set a strict schedule. I have a guide. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, these are things I like to do. These are things I should do. These are deadlines. What can I do today? Like how much, like I always have on my dry erase board, like the percentage at which I think I'm operating at that day. Like,
Yeah.
today I'm really 60% there. And this is that's like the energy I have. So
Yeah.
what can I pull from the guide for that day? But
Yeah.
like I also saw Salma say something interesting earlier. Wait, I always tell my tarot clients, if this is your situation right now and it's bad, imagine it getting worse every day. Are you ready to accept it? I think doing tarot as well has been a very interesting thing because I see a lot of different people where it's like you tell them something and they take it as like, okay, this is what's gonna happen. I
Yeah.
have no choice. I have no control over it.
Yeah.
Where Whereas some people, you tell them that same thing and they're like, okay, now that I know this, I'm gonna go completely against it. I'm gonna do everything to like
Fix it.
make sure
Yeah.
this doesn't happen. And both sides, both type of people always fail. They always fail to accomplish
Yeah.
whatever it is. I'm gonna like this is gonna happen, or like this is never gonna happen. I'm gonna go completely against it. They never get to that point because the only clients I see that actually, get something remotely that like goes in their direction is okay, this is the information I have. Now I'm gonna deal with that information and the possible outcomes.
Yeah.
Like that's like, okay, they've accepted that this is one possible outcome. It's not the absolute truth and it's not something that is completely like, doom and then they have to fight entirely. And actually that I'm not gonna go too much into tarot and the cards and whatever, but like the idea of like free will, I think is very misconstrued a lot of
Yeah.
times. But yeah.
Yeah. I think you know, you can only do really one thing at a time, right?
Mm,
And so that's something that I kind of have made a mantra with me and my girlfriend as well, because we have these anxiety issues, and we're always like wanting to do these things and then never getting them done and then feeling bad about ourselves. And so as a reminder, like, when you have these long-term plans, like I would like to have this career, I'd like to do this. Obviously that's not going to happen overnight. And it's going to be really hard for you to immediately try to get on that path to doing it when you, especially if you're, ADHD or you have some sort of attention issue, some sort of condition. You're
mm-hmm.
gonna be like, well, it's not gonna happen immediately, and then there's all these things, and then your motivation is not gonna be sufficient. Your motivation, your presentness is not gonna be sufficient because you're gonna be thinking about this distant theoretical thing, and not engaged in the present. But if you go one
Mm-hmm.
at a time, for us, for me, not to be like bragger guy, but like with this YouTube channel, it was literally one video at a time. Where I was like, first I'm gonna do one video a week. This is a
Mm-hmm.
restriction on me. This is going to be a strong commitment. It's going to mean that I'm going to have to do my videos a different way. It's going to mean that I'm going to have to think about how to put up my videos out in a different way. I'm going to have to put all these restrictions on myself and not be like limitless pill person. But it's going to be what I'm going to do because I would like to see what happens, right? I didn't set a super strong goal, but I was just like, I feel like it's definitely going to grow. And then every week, I would just go through that process of coming up with it, making it, being kind of happy with it, putting it out and seeing what happened. And sometimes it was 1,000 views. Before that it was, God knows, I mean, how many failed videos I've had. I got like 5 views here and there on different projects. But this time, it was just like step by step, like, oh, this one. And then there's a big one that happens. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to get this big. And then this happens and this happens. And so when you go one step at a time, the long-term stuff will sort of reveal itself to you. You don't have to worry about that. It's so much more beautiful when you get a plant and you plant the seed and you just watch it grow and you're like, oh wow, I had no idea that you were gonna have that many leaves. I had no idea that you were gonna go this way and that way. I actually wanted a plant that was gonna look more like this, but this is pretty sick too. Like you just get in all this beautiful, like to see it grow on its own. Like
And that's
Oh,
why
thank you,
I
Gray.
know how infuriating. It's so infuriating when people are like, love is gonna come when you least expect it. I hated that.
I
I
hated it
hated that
too.
for years. I was like, shut up. I don't want to hear that.
Yep.
I'm tired of this shit. But it's true. At the end of the day, it was true. It's so annoying that it's true. It's the
Yeah.
same thing as like when you start waking up in the morning and you
Saying,
do
yeah.
something that like you're like, oh, I took a walk and now I feel better. That's
This
infuriating. Like these
sucks.
people were right after all. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I got a lot of things done. Shut up. Like, okay.
Yeah, I can't
It's
believe actually
horrible.
drinking water is actually helping my skin. This fucking sucks.
I know it's annoying, but it is what it is.
That's
But
why
it's
people
like
say it.
literally, yeah, it's literally like, the moment I was like, I don't care. This is just gonna happen. And then it happens. You're like, oh wow, shit. It was okay. All right.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess you
crazy.
will.
It's actually crazy.
Also, we are approaching the time where I have to dip.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna go like
Cause
5 minutes and
hmm
then call it
hmm
quits. But it's been great so far. So we'll just do like quick hits, I suppose. Um,
okay, yeah.
so first of all, thank you for everybody for coming. Thank you to Gray for the $20 Australian dollar donation. I think that's what it is. Shout out to Australia, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Oh my God.
Don't know where that was. Um,
The man said, Guru, I can't believe taking care of myself is working. I know.
it
It's
sucks,
actually,
doesn't it?
I swear to God, you start going to the gym, your life starts looking up, and you're like, shit.
Like
They
that,
were right. I
it
cannot
really
believe that.
worked. But it's just much more difficult because you actually have to do it. And when you actually have to do it,
Uh-huh.
you realize that there's a lot of discomfort and limitation and lack of control that all comes there. And when you're not ready for it because you're too anxious and you're always like, no, I have to control this. I have to get what I want. I don't want more
Mhm,
discomfort. I don't want to deal with this. I don't
mhm,
want to deal with that. So it becomes impossible for you to do something like that. So you have to start from square one, start from the in breath and the out breath. Salma wrote, you can control your mentality and reactions, but maybe not the outcome. Right. You can never control
Yeah.
the outcome.
hmm
Can never control
You
the outcome.
cannot. And I think that's why, like, I don't know what's been going on. I mean, I know that all of the timeline has started, getting partnered up, getting booed up after BTS
Beat it
dipped.
out.
All of us were like, all right, we're just gonna get ourselves a non-BTS then. And,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of like the same things, like the same anxieties where it's like, okay, I really like this person, but like, I'm constantly worried about
Yeah.
like, what if that person leaves? Or like, what if I'm going, like, whatever. And the things I kept telling whoever I talked about this with was like, the, the most fun part of having a crush is actually, feeling all these things. So if you're depriving yourself of like actually being in that moment of like, oh my God, I get the butterflies, I get
Yeah.
all these things, then you're actually getting nothing from it.
Yeah.
And then if
Nothing.
that person's gonna leave, they're gonna leave anyway. So you might as well get the whole fun part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do. You're always gonna get anxiety about something. It's not foolproof, but at least what somebody say you were right about sunscreen, Awa. I hate it.
Sunscreen is so
Wear your
important.
you wear your fucking sunscreen. Everybody comes to, oh yeah, hyperpigmentation. How do you want to clear your hyperpigmentation but you're not wearing sunscreen?
Start
Topic for
there.
another day, but still.
I think, yeah, like you really the more that you think about the outcome, the worse it gets. And it's part of the corrosive effect that capitalism has. And
Mhm.
going back to base superstructure, because it's like you know how many times
Don't
you
do that. No,
hear.
no, no, no. Hold on. Nope. Nope. We have about 3 minutes left. Don't get into that.
I'm not gonna get deep. I'm not gonna get deep. All I'm just gonna say is
Talk to the
like,
chat. No, Elliot. Talk to the chat. Talk to the chat.
okay.
Talk to the chat.
Well, I saw Elisa earlier wrote, I honestly think we just forget to exist and that it's okay to just exist and not value ourselves based off capitalism ideals or how much we've done, and then it creates a loop. Yeah, like we do. Like, I mean, this is what I'll say is we think, like we hear all the time, like, oh, this is a results business, right? Like this thing that people
Mm,
say in all types of businesses. That's literally counterintuitive to human life. Like it cannot be a results, like life is not a results business. Life is literally the last thing you need to be thinking about is results, because it's nothing you can control. The only thing that you can control is what your reaction and your mentality is towards something, and then God
mm,
knows however the hell it's gonna go.
yeah.
But the more that you do that, the more you'll see that like you'll get at least nicer results than what it would have been if you had a horrible mentality about things, right?
Mm,
Well, I think it's just time for you to be let go of. I'll stick around
It
with the
is
chat a little bit longer, but
absolutely, yeah. I've been, been waiting 90 minutes to eat the dinner that my wonderful boyfriend made, and I need to go and eat before Valentine's Day at least.
yeah, yeah. Couldn't even get the word capitalism out for also talking to the chat. Well, look, I hope you enjoy your dinner. I hope you enjoy your
I
Valentine's Day. Send my
Yes.
love to your wonderful partner.
Yes, I will. And I hope everybody in the chat enjoys their Valentine's Day. And, if you're not spending Valentine's Day with somebody in particular, just, just do the template for me is brunch, facial, and brunch, facial, and then whatever you want to do after that. It's just whatever it is. Get yourself a sheet mask, even a dollar store sheet mask, doesn't matter. Just elevate your experience. Put a cherry in your wine. Just yeah.
Yeah, love is not just love between you and some other partner. Love is love, and love can be done.
Yes.
Like love can be spread in many different ways. So, we thank
Go
you
to the
for.
go to whatever store, a pastry shop, pick up somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
Terrible advice.
Hey, listen. Talk about inaccessible advice for many people. Um,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You'd be surprised. You'd be
you'd be
surprised.
surprised, ladies and gentlemen and friends of the chat. You will be surprised. And thank you, Awa, for spreading your love with
All
us
right.
tonight. It's been great. Enjoy your dinner, please.
I will. Thank you.
See
Bye.
you. Bye. Leah says, "I have having a. Well, you can. I just there you go." And Leah says, "Having a friend day, going to see the new Magic Mike LMAO. I hope you enjoy that. That sounds like a lot of fun for Valentine's Day. This is another one, great one. Thanks for the stream. I'm crocheting Valentines for my friends. That's really fun. Okay, see, like love is something that you can spread with anybody, and it's a very important thing. Love is one of the few things that you have control of. Okay, it's just like the in breath and the out breath, just like swallowing, just like blinking your eyes. These are these things that for pretty much all of us we can all do. Love is one of those things that mentality wise and approach wise, even though we can't control whatever results come from the love that we put out, we can control that we do things with love, right? So to Valentine's Day, whether you have a partner or you don't, do things with love, and then you'll see how fun it is, and then do it every day after that. If you want to accomplish something, do the step that you're supposed to do in this moment with love, right? Do it with intention, like Salma says, and I think a lot of great things can happen. But remember that so much of what controls the outcomes are things that are just things that are out of our control in general, and that there are systems, that there's things underneath that make us think certain things, make us feel certain things, and part of our being liberated is understanding that we aren't those systems. We don't have to simply operate fully under the most directed way that we've gotten. We don't have to be school kids. We don't have to be workers, at least not all the time. We can spend at least an hour literally just being a human being. And the more time that we spend being a human being and operating with love, the better. Because that's, I wouldn't say it's a way that we resist capitalism. I wouldn't say it's an inherently political act. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's just this inherently human act. And the more inherent humanity that we're able to preserve for ourselves, the more we'll be finding ourselves able to deal with the challenges that all of these problems that we see in the world throw at us. And these are things we'll talk about more in different streams. But for now, let's answer a couple questions and then go. Do you believe in soulmates? No, not really. I mean, I think there's something to it. I heard once that all the people that you meet in your life are people that you've met in past lives. It's quite possible. I think, to be honest, if you have a soulmate, then everyone's your soulmate, because I'm very much a non-duality person. And what I believe is that in that that everybody is spiritually, there's a spiritual oneness. Let's say there's a spiritual oneness where you and I are not two different things, but that we are one in some deeper way. And that sounds like a bunch of kumbaya bullshit, but really it's just a way to understand how humanity is interconnected in its humanness, and how not just humanity, but like literally life is connected in its living. And we see these things play out in the way that we talk when we talked about society and we talked about school and anxiety and the economy, and we notice how all these things are connected. This is a representation to me of what non-duality is, in that we see that everything is connected, right? So soulmate, if you have a soulmate, like what you're realizing is, what you're seeing is, there's an ease of your ability to connect with your oneness with another person. That's, I think, what I would say. Mr. Munchie asks, does it get better? Everything will get better and get worse, right? Like, that's part of life. Don't attach yourself. Don't get your hopes up. Don't attach yourself to the outcome. And don't, like people say, don't worry, right? But like what that means is like literally detach. If there are things, you need to think about the things that you want in life right now and start to ease that. Start to want those things less. Because to tell you the truth, so many of our problems, like not just our problems, but like so many problems emerge from desire, from attachment. Not desire, but from attachment. And so when you notice yourself attached to certain things, like I want a partner, I want a romantic partner, I want this job, I want this and that, sit down and talk to yourself and be like, am I attached to this or not? Because I'll tell you, for one, I'm extremely happy with the success of this channel. But I'm also very like I'm the most detached from being a YouTuber and from wanting YouTube success that I've ever been. I'm still working on it, but I am way less attached to it than I was a year ago, 2 years ago. I'm way less attached to it than I was when I was a little kid. Like this idea of success, I'm way less attached to it. And it's sort of coming to me partially because I'm not attached to it, and it doesn't matter as much as what matters, which is that I live well and that I do things with good intention. And now I see, there are things that happen as a result, but there are also many things that could have happened that didn't happen, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, just figure out how to start detaching and start focusing on like, let me do things with just good intention. And the way that we do that is we start from square one. We start from the breath, the in-breath. The in-breath and the out-breath. And platonic love is so underrated, IMO, 1,000%. I mean, you can classify love all you want. Love is love. When you do things, I think there's so much power in just doing things with love, because it's another way to sort of phrase doing things with intention. And doing things with intention, especially good intention, creates a lot. It creates a lot. It's very powerful. I think people don't realize intimacy can be platonic, though. It absolutely can be. Not to lie, Buddhism was my social and political awakening. Buddhism is so... I do really believe that it's going to be... like, at least many of the core ideas of Buddhism are going to have a huge part in... or could have a huge part in the liberatory struggle. But that's like a prediction, right? Like, who cares? Who cares about predicting things? I just think that if it's there for people to learn from and gain a lot from. How do you screw up the courage to tell someone that you like them? When you say screw up, do you mean like how do you build up the courage to tell someone you like them? What you're feeling usually in a situation like that is fear. You're feeling fear that a person's going to reject you, and you're feeling fear about having to confront that rejection and having to think about what it means. Does it mean you're not good enough? Does it mean you're not attractive? Does that mean that that person is not a good person, that you have bad taste? There's all these things you worry about. Again, these things kind of come from attachment, right? Like these things come from us being like, this has to be. And if it's not this way, then it's going to be a problem. think to yourself how many good things could happen if this person rejects you. Like, if you ask this person out and they say no, you can almost thank them for it, right? Because there's so many possibilities for good things to happen in your life when you experience that rejection, right? You could look at that rejection and be like, okay, well, I at least had the courage, like I found the ability to actually confess to somebody that I like them. How great, what a step that I've made. Or you could look at it and be like, okay, well, I thought that person was for me, but I guess not. And then later on you find the person who actually is for you, and you realize, oh my God, I'm so glad that I'm with this person instead. There's so many possibilities for things to happen that are gonna be nice for you, and it doesn't just have to come from one side of it. So do it because you recognize that you have an intention, you want to be with that person. So act on that intention in the best way you can, and whatever happens either way, just be psyched, just be super excited for whatever comes of it. If they say yes, be like, oh awesome, like I get that opportunity, like we're getting closer to this thing. If they say no, then you're like, oh, okay, well, there's all these other opportunities now I can move on to something else. So that's my 2 cents on that. Any intro to Buddhism text you'd recommend? What the Buddha Taught by Valpola Rahulatero, What the Buddha Taught, and probably some Thich Nhat Hanh stuff like How to Relax or You Are Here. I don't believe in soulmates myself, but it honestly feels like me and my cat Marbles have met in some sort of past life or whatever. She's the best. There's that non-duality. There's that non-duality. Y'all are connected and you feel it. The Thich Nhat Hanh book that you recommended, Moon, looks really great. We're entitled to 2 things, death and suffering. That's not quite the teaching, but fair. We're entitled to, so the 4 noble truths. Let me get my 4 noble truths pulled up. There's suffering. There is a rising, which is the thing that attaches us to suffering, or that we use as a response to suffering. There's ending, which is death, right? Nirodha. And then there's Magga, which is the path leading to I believe the word would be like the path to trying to get away from those things. I guess that's sort of my poor interpretation. If life is not about speed but direction, our goal is vital to having direction. Is feeling directionless just a factor of life or a symptom of capitalism? I'm just thinking out loud right now. A feeling is a feeling. Like, we have feelings, and then we usually go through the process of thinking about things that make those feelings make sense. I feel sad, so something bad is happening. This means that something bad has happened to me, and I feel sad about it. I feel happy, that means that something good is happening right now, and I'm happy as a response. But feelings are feelings. They can come from anywhere. And you usually have some good instincts as to where they're coming from, but when you feel directionless, that could be coming from many different places. Again, the base superstructure idea is like the production, the conditions of production, the material conditions are underscoring that feeling that you have. They're underscoring everything. So in that way, it's like not necessarily a symptom of capitalism, but it is what you're feeling under it, right? So as far as whether goals are vital to having direction, goals are limits. It's pretty, right? Goals are limits. If you say, I'm going to be a successful writer, that is at the same time a limitation. It is you saying, I am not going to be successful at X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to be successful at A, B, C. I'm going to be successful at D. I've chosen D. That's what I'm going to do. But that means that I have shut off a lot of other possibilities, some of which that I may not realize I've shut myself off to. So goals, like we talked about before, like limits are things that are really helpful for creativity, and they're really helpful to understanding stuff. And it's really good to understand that that limits are part of life, because we are all extremely limited in our control of things. So limits are good, but just be careful what you choose to limit and how. If you have goals, it gives you that direction so that you know what to set your intentions on. But it all has to, first you have to come back home. Like you have to come back to your presence and then open your eyes and be like, okay, so here I am. I'm in this house. I live here. This is how old I am. This is how I look, right? And then when you take account of all these things, and then you can begin to say, okay, well, what do I like? What do I not like? What would I like to see? What would I like not to see? Now, if you're very lucky, you might have that feeling of, nothing. Nothing is, I would like to change nothing. And that is a spiritual calm that you've realized that has brought you closer and closer to what we may call nirvana or something like that. But generally, there's going to be a couple things like, I'd like to comb my hair, or I would like to change my iPhone. I'd like to get a new iPhone. So then you think, okay, well, if I'd like a new iPhone, let me set some intentions. I'm going to earn some money, save some money, buy it through this, and then that's where you set that thing. That's where you set that path up, right? So literally the thing is start from zero. Start from home. Go home, right? Come home. Which is meditation, which is the in-breath and the out-breath, which is, doing zero, whatever it is that brings you to yourself. Then take observations of what's around you, what's going on. Then set some intentions. And then just start acting with intention based on those, right? Okay, I would like to make more money. Here's some things that I will commit to in that effort. And then you just go from there, and you realize that at the same time that you make those goals, you set limits for other things that you can't have. Would that be more like a checklist? Can be a checklist. Gotta finish my hair. Jess, it's great having you. The Buddhism hat is going firmly on. Yeah, I mean, like, I just think it's so connected, right? Like, I just think that it's those are my purviews. Those are the things that I look at when I talk about, life a lot of the time. And Buddhism has allowed me this sort of structure, this sort of limit, this very helpful limit to understanding these things. But, Marxism and Buddhism work quite well together. What would search mode be? I guess just like, I think you may be referring to what I'm saying. Oh, Moni is saying being in search mode is still living. Yeah, like you're in search mode, like you're trying to learn what's going on, you're trying to seek what's going on, and that's still living. Yeah, 1000%. Anyway, this has been a great chat. Jessie, thank you so much for coming. I don't know if you're still here. Oh, she's left, but I love her very much, so I'll try to reach out to her as soon as possible. Thank you all for hanging out. This was fun. Surprise stuff coming this weekend. A surprise is coming for the next video, so be tuned for that. Stay tuned. And thank you for supporting the channel, man. Like, it's going great. I'm really happy. No complaints.